Interesting when we look at the front of the Times too, fears mount for Euro's downgrade hits France, but then it's also got that subheading there, just underneath, just to get that in more detail there, and it declares, deepening crisis, just to move it up, may put Britain's rating at risk. Now this is the worry that this contagion spreads, and even though we're not in the euro, we're all going to get hit by this.
Which is why there's not really a time for the schadenfreude that seems to have hit Twitter. Lots of jokes about the French being a bit moodies and things like that. Because yes, I mean, either way it will hit Britain. In fact, if the Eurozone crisis gets resolved, it will also affect our debt rating.
I think there are two things here. First of all, it's a warning to us that we've got to tackle the economic problems, and actually that's why I think the austerity measures are right, because France hasn't got the austerity measures. But the second issue about all of this is actually the fact that we're not, because we're not members of the Eurozone, we're not really being hit. But what it means is that we have to be very careful. And if we're not careful, and the Eurozone does get into much more trouble, what it means is businesses in Britain that sell to Europe are going to have problems about confidence, and that's going to affect how people see British business and the British economy.
And with you being an MEP, I mean, how do you feel in terms of the sort of political standing of Britain within Europe? I mean, we're always being declared as, the reluctant partner in the European project. I mean, it's still very much the feeling that we're distant cousins, if you like.
Well, I think what's interesting, particularly after the summit, from David Cameron's summit, where David Cameron vetoed or stopped the agreement going ahead for all 27, was that privately many of the MEPs that I spoke to understood that we had to stand up for British interest, and so that actually, had they been British MEPs or British politicians, they completely understood it. But at the same time, there's an annoyance with us that we do not believe in this United States of Europe that they're trying to build.
Yeah.
And that's really where the real cultural problem comes. We don't believe in the United States of Europe, or most people, I don't think that I come across in Britain, don't believe in the United States of Europe. Whereas many of the politicians out there are saying, why aren't you showing European solidarity? The euro is not an economic project, it's a political project, and you should join up.
And that's always been the problem, of course,
yes,
that the figures didn't work. Well, let's take a look at some other stories. We've got the Independent. We've gone inside now for page 2 on this move by Michael Gove to actually sack bad teachers, which heads could do already to a degree, but it's the time element it would take them to do that.
I'm quite interested about, well, it's not very clear yet about which part of the procedure it's going to be and where they change it from a year to 3 months. Ofsted,
or a term, effectively, I suppose, a school term, yeah.
Ofsted, when they are assessing schools, do not go into the rooms if the teacher is subject to disciplinary action already.
Oh, really?
So that's because there is a process put in place. Now, is this proposing to cut that process down or cut down the time after that process? And that's what I'm not sure about. I mean, it may be something that it gets more clarification, but I think we have to be very careful not to scapegoat individual teachers for a failing school.
Yeah, and I guess the other aspect is, of course, that the employment lawyers will have a field day with this for claims for unfair dismissal and all sorts of other issues that were raised.
Well, it depends on what the contractual terms were, and that's not something I know about in the public sector.
When I'm knocking on the doors and the issue of schools come up, actually, sometimes I have had people on the doorstep say to me, why is it that in any other job, if you do badly, you're out? Yeah. And why is it that the teaching profession, it doesn't seem to be that easy? Yeah. Now, I think in this case, actually, if a teacher is performing badly, you've got to give them a chance, retrain and all that. But actually, if after retraining and attempting to keep them on, and they're still not doing the job, I think bad teachers have to go, like any other profession.
I think it's a little simplistic as well to say that if a teacher is not performing well, why can't you get them out? Because there's a lot of factors as to why a class gets
a different... How is the performance rated? Is it the exam results? Because a lot of teachers saying, we're now just exam machines. We can't teach. We're just trying to teach them how to pass these exams.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what teachers expect out of their students as well.
Now, the other issue that we've been looking at in our headlines as well, the Daily Mail's going for this on the front page, abandoned, it says, by British Justice. This is this student, Richard O'Dwyer, who's facing this extradition proceeding. I guess there's two legal aspects here. It's the extradition question and this whole issue about copyright law attached to the internet.
Yeah, the extradition question is interesting because both of the coalition leaders criticised the Extradition Act that we have in place at the moment when they were in opposition.